community of Wilmington, a spiritual community that is here for you, that is completely committed to and dedicated to expanding consciousness and inspiring personal transformation. We begin by reminding you 3 very important things about yourself. You are a beloved expression of God. You are here for a holy purpose, and you are where you are right now by divine appointment. You are always in the right place at the right time, right now.
Open up my eyes to daylight in my new city, where maybe I will wander too far away from where I started. Open up my heart and break her. No gentle waters, no anchor. I'm barely brave enough to keep breathing, but I believe in love. There is enough, so ask for more, fill you up. Nobody's keeping score. Do you know what you fight for? What you fight for? I want more. In the dead of the dark, the hard times on broken branches and lifelines. Remember, it's all a game, a grand design that you can't tame. Open up your eyes and cry, then mourn your child, your innocence, and turn around to face this playground and come with. There is enough, so ask for more to fill you up. Nobody's keeping score. Do you know what you fight for? What you fight for? I want more love. There is enough, so ask for more to fill you up. Nobody's keeping score. Do you know what you fight for? What you fight for? I want more of me, more of you, more wandering into night skies from the sunrise side view, more deep breaths, more exhales, more winding off the road for my story to tell, my story to tell, my story to tell. There is enough, there is enough. What do you fight for? I want more love. There is enough, so ask for more to fill you up. Nobody's keeping score. Do you know what you fight for? What you fight for? I want more love. I want more love. Open up my eyes to daylight. I believe in love.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you, Dan. And thank you. I believe in love, and I think that most people believe in love because it's what we're taught in music and in books. And hang on just a minute. Okay, I believe in love. If you couldn't lip read, now you're going to catch up with some sound. So I believe in love, and I think most of us believe in love. And the reason why most of us believe in love is because we've learned to believe in love from music and books and movies and poetry. And the other thing that we've learned from those same books, movies, poetry, music, is that there's not enough. There's not enough time, there's not enough love, there's not enough money, and so I'm going to ask you to just take a breath. Unity as a spiritual community is committed to busting those false belief systems. And the way we go about it, especially at Unity of Wilmington in this spiritual community, is that we begin to ask questions. And we ask questions as a community to you specifically. And some of those questions, in most cases or some cases, are revelatory. They're like, oh, wow, I didn't know that life worked like that, but I see that it does. Oh, wow, I never recognized that I am the spark of creation. Whee! And we leave our time together feeling very uplifted and energetic and super excited about life. And then there are those other cases in which this spiritual community asks you questions, and you come away feeling irritated and irked and unsettled, because those questions are very powerful questions in another direction. They ask you to face the choices you've made and take responsibility for them. They ask you to face what's going on in your life, and they ask you to face the things that you need to look at in order to engage in forgiveness. And so those harder times, you can be assured that there's an entire spiritual community that is here supporting you. So take a breath. Take a breath. All the beliefs that we hold, we learned. We learned them from somewhere or from someone. In a lot of cases, we've learned our foundational beliefs from our families of origin, but we've also learned them, like I said, from the greater world. We learn them consciously. Yes, I am going to adopt that belief system. Yes, I'm going to adopt that idea. Oh, that I resonate with and I feel good about it. But in some cases, we learn them subconsciously. And it is asking questions and turning our attention inward to looking at our belief systems that we can actually make that conscious choice, almost a super conscious choice, of whether or not we want to continue to hold them or we want to let them go. Lynn Twist, who was the genius fundraiser behind the Hunger Project and the co-founder of the Pachamama Alliance, says that we hold 3 toxic myths about scarcity. And when we take a look at these now conscious toxic myths, we can make some choices about them. The first one is, it's going to click in a minute. There we go. There is not enough. This sounds familiar. I mean, it's only been a couple of minutes since we talked about there's not enough. There's not enough time. There's not enough money. If you recall back to little kid times, when you were younger, anyone who has played musical chairs understands the myth that there's not enough. Because in that game of musical chairs, we were taught to fear losing out, being left out. And if you played with people who were innovative, like I played with a few of these people, I even tried it on for myself. When the music stopped, I tried to take 2 seats because I knew there would not be enough for one of my friends. And so I was always trying to be as big as I could to save that seat for my friend. But that's what fear inspires us to do when we believe and buy into the myth that there is not enough. There's not enough is the antithesis of Jesus' teachings about the lilies of the field. As we focus on our own growth, as we focus on following that urge in our own holy purpose, in our own purpose in life, as we follow that, we recognize that all of our needs are met. The second toxic myth is more is better. And it's a logical next step, you think. Well, if there's not enough, then more is better. And what happens with this toxic myth is that we begin to have a competitive drive so that we can have more accumulation and that we can have acquisition, which turns into greed. And that competitive drive puts us at a pace that brings about chronic stress. And chronic stress brings about chronic illness. So we may think that more is better, but in actuality, it's not. The other thing that's actually deceptive about more is better is that it sets us up to judge other people. Because when more is better, we begin to measure our worth by our financial success and by the things we have accumulated, by our external experiences. So as we begin to judge ourselves that way, we have a lens that then we look out into the world and we begin to judge others that way. Well, are they worth my time to speak with? Do they have enough? Do they live in the right neighborhood so that my kids can play with their kids? We begin to use that lens in everything that we do when we have consciously and subconsciously bought into the myth that more is better. Back before COVID restrictions, before we closed the building and went only to an online platform, we used to have a choir. And one of the members of our choir, he passed away this week, just a couple of days ago. And he's been on my heart. He was on my heart. I talked to him a couple of weeks after Easter. I mean, he's been on my heart for some time. And the beauty of having a friend like Mac is that we got to step out of our judgment, or I got to step out of my judgment, because certainly there was no measure of financial success in the way he presented himself. But the intrinsic, the immeasurable gifts that he brought to the choir experience and rehearsal, the choir experience and performance, he always had an antic or two up his sleeve. He always had a twinkle in his eye. And that immeasurable gift will be sorely missed on this earth plane. The third toxic myth is that's just the way it is. That's just the way it is. Probably has the strongest grip on our belief system, because no matter what's going on in the world, no matter how many traditions or assumptions or habits we have, they can always be used to explain and justify that's just the way it is. Everything that we have and we find ourselves saying that's just the way it is puts us into a mindset of resignation. And when I say resignation is, well, we might as well give up. We might as well resign ourselves to our fate. And I'm going to say that very seriously. We might as well resign ourselves to the conditions of the outer world, because that's just the way it is. Resignation puts us in a state of consciousness that is filled with hopelessness, helplessness, and cynicism. Resignation keeps us in line. Resignation keeps us in our place. For generations, this resignation justified institutionalized racism, all kinds of discrimination, and emboldened dishonest business and political leaders to make a profit at the extent of someone else. That's just the way it is. I believe the antidote to just the way it is to get rid of that. I don't know how you feel about just the way it is, but I begin to feel like what my mother used to say is gross. That's gross. It's a very gross feeling. I like the word icky. I don't like it, but I prefer it to gross. So icky, gross, resentful, hopeless, helpless. I just want to get inside some giant body of water and cleanse myself of that outer experience of just the way it is. I want to have a spiritual release in which I let all three of these toxic beliefs go. I want to co-create. I want to be in a world that I co-create, participate with other people in co-creating an equitable experience. I want to allow my spiritual wisdom, my inner guidance to guide me in the next step forward. I want to have an experience of love and compassion, not only for myself, but for every being, every living thing on the planet. And I believe the way to do that is to reclaim my power. And I'm saying the entirety of my power. So I'm saying I want to awaken the divine feminine within me, because I believe we've been out of balance. The divine masculine, it's very useful and it's very necessary. The divine masculine is categorized as strength and logic and order. But the divine feminine is compassion and intuition and creativity. And we need both, or our whole world tilts out of balance. When we put too much emphasis on the divine masculine, in that unbalanced state, we tend to have toxic myths. We tend to engage in war and strife and injustice. We tend to be susceptible to chronic illness and ways of being that don't support our body. I want to be a part of a movement, an awakening that brings that divine feminine back into our conscious awareness, into our conscious belief systems. So what does it mean to call forth our divine feminine? What does it mean to awaken the divine feminine energies? Does that mean enlightenment or bringing a higher frequency? What does it mean to look at what the divine feminine is? Does it mean that we look at the Christian model where we worship Mother Mary? Does it mean we look at a Buddhist model or a pagan model? Do we go way back to primitive whatevers? What do we mean when we say divine feminine? Now, I know there are some of you who are listening who know a little bit about the divine feminine, and I know there are some of you who are listening who know a lot about the divine feminine, but basically the divine feminine is that energetic essence that has been here since the beginning of time, since the beginning of the formation of what we call Mother Earth. And it's seen in many traditions, old, ancient traditions. In the Hindu traditions, there's Shakti, and she has many incarnations. In the Buddhist traditions, there's Kuan Yin, the goddess of mercy. And in Native American sacred narratives, women are prominently featured. In Western civilization, there have been many names, and I don't know which are the oldest, but Asherah, Ishtar, Isis, Gaia, Sybil, all of those names capture that ancient essence that's been with us, conscious and unconscious and subconsciously over millennia. Now, in Unity, we look at the metaphysics. So we go beyond the name. We go beyond the name because we want to discover what it is about that essence that's alive in us today. And it works both for the divine feminine, so as we awaken or tune into or identify or begin to amplify that divine feminine, we're amplifying our creativity, our intuition, and our compassion. And yes, as we begin to do that, we become more aware and more conscious of the balance that we are creating with our attention and our awareness with the divine masculine. So awakening the divine feminine doesn't make a man less manly, just like amplifying the divine masculine doesn't harden a woman's heart. But it's all about balance, and it's about recognizing that the entirety of the power that is within us, within our soul, within our psyche, within our heart and mind is both masculine and feminine. So here are 3 ways that we can focus our attention or gently place our awareness on the divine feminine. And the first is to celebrate creativity. Celebrating creativity is actually stepping into it and having the experience of being creative. Albert Einstein used to say that in order to be creative, you should do something you love. And so he had a son, and his son loved to play the piano. And when it came time for the son to start creating something, Einstein used to tell his son, go play the piano. It's what you love to do. It'll open the gateways in your heart and your mind to that creative flow. So my question to you, and actually Unity of Wilmington's question to you is, what is it that you love to do? And then do that. My friend and colleague, Reverend Therese Lee, has immersed herself in photography. Who knew she was such an incredible artist? We were at dinner a couple of weeks ago, and the sun was getting ready to set, and I said, oh, I'm going to go out to the end of the pier because I want to take a picture of the sunset. And she said, oh, yeah, I'm into taking pictures. She's beginning to find her spark of creativity in photography. So I go out to the end of the pier, I take a picture, I turn around, there's no Therese, and I look back, and what I saw as just simply the pathway to the end of the pier, she has seen as the gateway to infinite potential. Her photo was phenomenal. Do something you love, and the creativity begins to flow. Now, the contrast to doing something is to do nothing, right? To do nothing. Alan Cohen, the modern day mystic, Alan Cohen says there is a virtue in work and there is a virtue in rest. Use both. Ignore neither. So very often I notice in myself that the most creative ideas that I have come from when I stop trying to have a creative idea. When I let go of that pressure of coming up with that creative idea, it's like, wow, they're everywhere. Some people say, oh, resting, meditating, that's when it all comes together. Whatever it is for you in that moment, use both. Ignore neither. The third, now it works. Cultivate love and compassion. Let's do the second one. Second one, honor intuition. Unity co-founder Charles Fillmore defines intuition as that natural knowing, that deep inner knowing that you feel comes from spirit. He also says it's an immediate apprehension of spiritual truth that comes without intellectual effort. So intuition is what we know that we know that we know, where we haven't had to give it a whole lot of brain power. Now, modern day scientists said this phenomenon is observable and mappable. So they look at it in lab settings and they look at brain scans, and they've been able to discern this. We have an awareness that's visceral before we have a conscious thought about it. So we have intuition going on all the time, but sometimes we don't recognize what's going on with our body or our spidey sense or the belly buzz. We don't recognize that until we have the conscious thought. So if you begin to practice intuition, you're going to know that you're making the right choice. Should I go left? Should I go right? Should I do this? Should I date him? Should I take this job? You're going to know that you're making the right choice because your vibratory feeling is going to have a resonance in your body. And I think this is when you actually call on both the divine feminine and the divine masculine. It's like you've called intuition out, that's the divine feminine, but you're gonna validate it with the divine masculine, because you're gonna notice with your yes, your body's gonna feel grounded and you're gonna feel stronger. Now, the opposite is true. You can use it in situations where it's like warning, warning, danger, Will Robinson. You can notice that something feels off. You feel it. It's a sensation that you have, but there's no intellectual evidence to support it. There's a story of a young woman who lived alone in a neighborhood that had a few homes, but it was a little bit hilly and lots of trees, old growth. She loved it, but she woke up one morning and she felt weird. She felt like there was something off, and she almost felt like someone was watching her. And at 8:30, after feeling this for a while, at 8:30 in the morning, she texted her mother. And she said, "What do I do?" And her mother thought about it for a moment, and she said, "Check all your locks and be mindful all day." Now, at 4:30 in the afternoon, that woman heard a scratchy noise at the door, and then a barely perceptible knock. Barely perceptible. And she thought, wow, if I hadn't been paying attention, I wouldn't have heard it. And she turned to look and see what it was, and it was the little boy who lived down the street. So she opened the door, and here was this 2-year-old boy. She called his parents, who were frantic, and they themselves had already called the police because 45 minutes earlier they had noticed him missing. So 45 minutes is way different. This is what intrigues me about this story, is that she woke up feeling that she needed to pay attention and that she needed to have her heightened awareness because something was off. And yet it was only 45 minutes from the time that the little boy knocked on her door to the time the parents had missed him, and he had certainly been there at lunchtime. Intuition. Honor that feeling, that vibe, that energy that you're beginning to feel, because the more you honor it, the deeper it gets. And then third and last is cultivate love and compassion. Cultivate love and compassion, because we are in a world that so desperately needs more love and compassion. because of our imbalance. Did you know that every day, because of territorial disputes, drug wars, skirmishes, and infighting, over 80,000 men, women, and children die every day? Did you know that 95,000 people die every day from hunger and hunger-related diseases? And just to give you some kind of perspective, the worst day of COVID in India so far, 4,000 people died. These are human problems. And I believe that the world has followed their heart with COVID especially. Jesus taught, love your neighbor as yourself, and every now and then I get to thinking, love your neighbor as yourself. You know, that gospel, they left a few words out, and I don't know if it was to save ink or paper, but they really might have meant to say, love your neighbor as yourself because you are worth loving, or love your neighbor as yourself because you love yourself, or love your neighbor the same way you love yourself. Regardless, there's nowhere in there that said Jesus taught, love your neighbor at the expense of yourself, or love yourself at the expense of your neighbor. And I think these human problems that we're facing is because we have given up. We've resigned ourselves in some way to expensing ourselves and expensing our neighbors. Human problems, we think, require a human solution. But when the truth is that everything we see in the outer is a reflection of what we are holding in our belief systems in the inner, then the real solution is to have a spiritual solution. And the spiritual solution is to bring our divine feminine and our divine masculine back into balance so that we can affirm the wholeness of other people. We can hold them in their full esteem. We can get rid of those filters, those judgments, those resentments, those resignations of just the way it is. We can let those go. We can clear them from our minds and our hearts, and we can come back into balance. Coming back into balance is really calling forth right now that divine feminine. So here is an affirmation. I awaken my divine feminine. I call upon my capacity to be creative, to be intuitive, and to mobilize acts of love and compassion. Let's say it again. Let's say it again. I awaken my divine feminine. Let that land inside of you. Let that land in your power center. I awaken my divine feminine. I call upon my capacity to be creative, to be intuitive, and to mobilize acts of love and compassion. Mother Mirror is a physical, real-life embodiment of the divine feminine. She was born in 1960 in India, grew up in the ashram of Sri Aurobindo. She now lives in Germany, and her U.S. headquarters is right here in North Carolina. Prior to COVID, she traveled the world, offering darshan to anyone, regardless of their religious affiliation, transcendent experiences. Thousands and thousands of people would come to each darshan, and one by one, Mother Mirror would put her hands on their heads, and then she would look into their eyes. She said what she was really doing was reaching into their heart and untangling knots, untangling the knots of error that bound them. And in that open space, then she poured in love and light. It's a profound experience to have. And metaphysically, if Mother Mira can do that for other people, we can do that for ourselves. So I invite you now to find a comfortable place where you can set yourself aside from the outer world. Close your eyes so you no longer have that stimulation. Make that journey. Make that journey to the divine feminine. That essence, that energy, that power center that lies in your very heart. And then go a little bit deeper into the love and the light that's there. Let it cradle you. Let it hold you. Let it love you. Let it forgive you. That divine feminine is you. You are light. You are love. You are more love than you could ever imagine being. Take your hands, one on each side of your head, and begin to untangle the knots that are still holding you to false belief systems, to toxic myths, to attachments that don't serve or support. And begin to slow your pace so that it matches your essence. And then in your mind's eye, in that third eye, open up to the light and the love and let it pour in you. Let it fill every nook and cranny of your being. You are the spark of creation. You are the wisdom of all knowing. And you are the love and the compassion that you need to nurture you, and that you need to nurture the world. And when you have completely filled yourself up, begin to notice the love and the light, and allow that love and light to bring you back up into the world, back into the conditions we live in, and notice how you see them differently. Notice how you feel them differently. And notice with an acute and exquisite awareness how things are more beautiful, and how you are ready to be a positive change in co-creating an equitable world, in honoring and being led by your intuition, and how your compassion spills over into everything you do. So it is. And so we let it be. With strength, with fortitude, with grace, and with great aliveness, we come back to the world.
I've got an itching on the tips of my fingers. I've got a boiling in the back of my brain. I've got a hunger burning inside me, cannot be denied. I've got a feeling that the Father who made us, when he was kindling the pulse in my veins, he left a tiny bit of that fire smoldering inside. The spark of creation is flickering within me. The spark of creation is blazing in my blood. A bit of the fire that lit up the stars and breathed life into the mud. The first inspiration, the spark of creation. I see a mountain and I want to climb it. I see a river and I want to leave shore. Where there was nothing, let there be something, something made by me. There's things waiting for me to invent them. There's worlds waiting for me to explore. I am an echo of the eternal cry of let there be. The spark of creation burning bright within me. The spark of creation won't let me rest at all until I discover or build or uncover a thing that I can call my celebration of the spark of creation.
If you have been moved, touched, or inspired by anything you've heard today, I invite you, number one, to share this video with someone you think would also be moved, touched, or inspired. I also invite you to support Unity of Wilmington with a gift of generosity. You can use Venmo, you can use the Facebook donate button, or you can go to our website, www.unitywillonel.com. And thank you. Thank you for the compassion and love that you are in the world.